This is Conversation Balloons, a podcast of interviews with experts and friends about all things generational. I'm your host, Leah Farish. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Jodi Silverman, a mindset and happiness coach who specializes in helping people with empty nest issues. She's also a mentor and founder of Moms Who Dare, which is a community of women who want to start, especially in a second chapter of life, to take some new risks and challenges.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Leah.
And I found you through your podcast, Beyond
Yes.
Empty Nest. And so you too are a podcaster, and I love that. So we want to talk today about the challenges of a newly discovered empty nest. And usually that comes from kids going off to college, our beloved kids we have nurtured all to the point of doing this. And yet it can sometimes be a bit of a letdown when they're actually out of the house.
It leaves a huge void, a very large void in the physical space of the house, in the emotional space of the house. And every mom, we'll talk parents too. I don't want to leave the dads out, but I do specifically speak to the moms, hence my Moms Who Dare community. But every parent, every mom, even though they have different feelings around it, the challenges are pretty much all the same. They're just at different levels, different intensity when that happens.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about the phrase losing touch with someone, and we do kind of lose touch with those who go off and leave the nest. And I thought about literally, we do lose touch. And one thing I missed when my kids went to college was the hugs and the touching. It's a very intimate thing to raise kids. You know everything about them. You know how their hair smells. You know how their voice sounds when they first wake up. You know whether they can eat strawberries or get a rash or whatever. It's just everything. And then there's nothing.
No, I know.
And even FaceTime and texting and all, that's not quite the same experience, is it?
It's not, but it's better for us than it was for our parents because we had payphones when I started out in college.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we had a payphone in the hallway of each floor of the dorm or the sorority or fraternity. And there was a sign-up sheet to call home every Sunday. That was it.
Yeah.
My mom had to wait till Sunday unless she called me. But, you're right. We know everything, every intimate detail about our children. Mm-hmm. We know just by the way they walk into a room or out of a room how they're feeling, whether they had a good day or a bad day. And whether or not you're a mom who worked out of the house or you decided to be a full-time mom to raise your children, it's a loss. It's a loss. We know all their friends. Most of our children have friends from as early as preschool. So from like 2 years old till 18, their friends. It just almost as intimately as your children. And now they go off and you don't have that front row seat in their life anymore.
That's true.
You're pushed a little bit back. You don't know what are they doing every day, and the unknown. We all have that discomfort, and I won't call it a fear of the unknown in this part. It's a discomfort of the unknown. I don't know what they're doing, and are they getting up, and are they going to class, and are they eating alone the first few weeks of school? Did they find somebody to go to the dining hall with? All those questions are normal, and every mom from generations to generation have all thought that.
Yeah.
And that's that's the part of the loss of the energy of that person in the house. And it even is so much that even if you have 1, 2, or 3 children left still at home, because it's your oldest that went off. Because I remember I have 2 children, Leah, and they're 29 and 26 now, respectively. When my 29-year-old left, it was 3 years before my son was going to leave. And yet the whole energy of the house changed because she was such a big presence. They each have their own personalities. So we had to figure out a way to make, dinner time more about us without her, change up our routines to make it a new energy that fit everybody who was left. So there's so much that goes into that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the fact that regarding touch, when we are touched, our oxytocin goes up, our bonding and feeling of security and safety and comfort increases, and the hormones,
Yeah.
the stress hormones, cortisol, and all go down. And so we literally may have hormonal adjustments to make. And, those of us who have a husband to cuddle up to and who's also going through this loss, that's a wonderful thing to turn to, but
No.
not all moms have that. Is it harder for single
I have
moms?
found from my conversations with single moms that it is harder. It is harder. They spend more. It seems like they spend more time when they're a single mom or that of an only child as well. That of the only child. But I want to say with the touch, and you also said like the smell, and you triggered a memory in me. I used to say when my kids would come home, I would grab them and I would just inhale them, like, and sometimes it was good. Sometimes I'm like, we'll go shower, then I'll inhale you later. But it does. It does,
Yeah.
though. I mean, we as humans, you touched on something so importantly. We crave, connection through, mind, body, and spirit. And the single moms, I find, struggle a little harder because they don't have that everyday partner in their life that they can commiserate with or snuggle up with, and like you said, so they do struggle in a different way. And those moms also, it differs with those moms that have an only child, or how about the twins? They only have one set of twins and they all go off at the same time. They have two.
Mhm.
And if they go to
Yeah.
different schools, that's a whole
Yeah.
nother set of, oh my gosh, how do I divide myself into two? So yeah, all of that,
Mhm.
the loss of the energy, the loss of the touch and the feel, the emotional connection, not having them home for their birthdays. That was huge for me. The first time I realized my son or
Mhm.
my daughter wasn't going to be home for their birthday, wait a minute, I birthed them. I get to celebrate their birthdays and I love birthdays. The first time they weren't going to be home for
Uh-huh.
my birthday. It's hard.
Yes. Yeah, those are lots of
Yeah.
losses. And I I realized when my kids went off that for the first time I was dreaming of them. And they hadn't been in my dreams very much when I was raising them, but I I kept having dreams of them as infants or little preschoolers, those little tender ages. And it was not sad, it was usually happy, but then I felt so nostalgic when I would wake up, and I guess my subconscious was just dealing
Yeah.
with this whole life course
And
change,
it's what, yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet. I mean, look, we know when we bring a child into this world, however you bring a child into this world, that eventually one day, your goal is to raise them to be confident, decision making young adults who can go off in the world and be good, kind humans who can make decisions on their own and discover their life like you discover theirs. Well, even though we know it's coming, we're never fully prepared. You can't fully be prepared to launch your children. You can only,
Mhm,
do it with an open heart and honor your feelings. You're allowed to feel the sadness and the loss. We're not talking about ignoring it. There's moms that they like, oh, I'm so excited about it. And maybe they are, but and yet we need to be really aware that not every mom is excited about it, because not every mom, like I find the women that are most excited about having more space in their life, it's not about not missing their children. It's that they have something that they really want to dive deeper into in their life, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a
mhm,
career. And there is an excitement to being able to shift the focus back onto yourself and dive deeper into your career. I know I was excited about that part for me, that I could take this coaching, mentoring practice and I could dive deeper into it. Maybe I could take more courses because I had the time. Maybe I could earn a little bit more money. So the
yeah,
loss of, I hear a lot, Leah, from a lot of the women that join the Moms Tutor Facebook group that they feel like they've lost the best job they ever had and they don't have a purpose now outside of being a mom. And it's a real thing getting lost in our role as mom. We have to.
Let me ask you, in mentioning the women that you've talked to through the years, have you ever come across a woman that almost feels a little jealous? And the nostalgia kind of morphs into, wow, they're getting either, if the mom went to college, had a great time, they wish they were back, or the mom didn't get to, and here the child is launching into whole new realms that she would wish, or maybe, the social life, mom is wishing she had those, dating
So
experiences ahead.
I never really, that's a really good question. I'm going to write that down to ask about the living vicariously through your children. I've never asked my moms directly about that, but I do know, even from my experience, that we do live vicariously to some extent at different parts of it. Like for me personally, that's a really good question to ask. I'm going to ask that question. But I can share, like,
Okay.
both my husband and I went to colleges, universities that didn't have huge football teams. My daughter went
Mhm.
to University of Maryland. They had football. They were really big with basketball. But there were tailgates. There were things like that. My son went to University of Alabama. It doesn't get any more intense than Alabama
Yes.
than SEC football. It just doesn't. So when we first went to visit, I'll use him. I looked at my husband, I'm like, oh my God. I don't, first of all, I was like, wow, this would have been so cool. And then the second time I thought about it, I really looked, I'm like, yes, it would have been so cool, so much fun. And yet I might not have graduated college. So there's a reason maybe I didn't have a football team. But I think we do. I think there has to be. I'm going to ask that question of the group. I'm going to put a poll in the group because I think it's great. But there has to be some, if we felt like we missed the mark somewhere in our college experience, or maybe you didn't get to go to college. My mother wanted to go to college and didn't go. I know that she wishes she could have gone. So I never asked her. I'm
Yeah.
going to talk to her too. I never asked her how she felt while we went. If it gave her a little tinge of
Mhm.
I wish that was me. I don't know. It's a really good question. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I think maybe that some women take this opportunity to kind of process some regret, some
Or
ways that maybe they didn't do a good job, and they feel like the chance has passed to raise a great kid, and they fil guilty.
no, absolutely. The feelings of, oh my gosh, did I prepare them for this? Do they know enough? And my answer to that whenever our mom expresses it is, we all do the best we could do with what we have at the time in the moment. Of course, there are things I look back and I wish maybe I didn't raise my voice as much and maybe I would have paid attention and been in the moment more. I didn't know what intentionality was when I was a mom. I didn't know affirmations. I didn't know all of that. And yet I did the best I could with what I did. I gave my children love. They knew they were loved, they knew they were cared for. And most of us do that really well. Most children know their parents love them. And, I would say just
Mm,
trust that your kids know what they know and that they will ask for guidance. They're going to fall. They're going to fall. They're going to, but it's not because you didn't do a good job. Trust that you laid a foundation that's strong enough to help them make the decisions they need to make. And when they need help, they will come. They will come back. Look, once a mom, always a mom. You did not lose your best job you ever had because I am 58. And when something goes wrong in my life, my first phone call, I'm blessed my mom is still here. I get to call my mom. So you're just a mom in a different way. You're not the fixer of all things now. You're more like the coach and the advisor, waiting with the space to give them the space to come to and just hold space for them.
mhm,
But trust, you did. I trust. I don't know every mom and every parent out there, but I know none of you are perfect. And we can all look back and
right,
wish we did something different. And yet
mhm,
they're here, they're good people, they're going to be okay. Living in that regret isn't going to do anybody any good. It's going to take you away from being there now when they need you. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, one thing I think is a challenge over the course of long-term, maybe lifetime relationships, maybe a marriage, is to let the person that I love change because, I loved this one person with this constellation of traits, and it's hard to let go of that and see them morph, and
Yeah.
um, it can be threatening. Um, I love the writings of C.S. Lewis about this and The Great Divorce and Screw Tape Letters that show that it's a weakness that we have to want to hang
Mhm.
on to somebody and be threatened by their new interests, their new relationships, and just, maybe leaving things that I'm familiar with that worked
Mhm.
well for me, but,
Yeah.
that's not about loving them. That's about loving an idea of something that gives me pleasure.
Well, you're also, yeah, but and it's also, if you're feeling that struggle to embrace and letting your children come home from college and visit and be the new developing self that they are, that's more reflection on what are you stuck in, where are
Yes.
you stuck. I have a quote on my website, and a quote I say all the time. You've raised your kids, all of us have raised our kids to go out in the world, brave new experiences, learn, grow, and meet new people and learn new things. I really didn't say that as eloquently as it is written on my website. And then I say, and now it's your turn to do the same thing. Dare is my fun word, on having you step out of your comfort zone. It's a playful word for me, not scary. It doesn't mean jump out of an airplane. And I dare the moms in my community, go do what you've just launched your children to do. Is there something you always wanted to learn? Did you want to, have you always wanted to take a cooking course, join a book club, ride your bike again? What is something that you've always wanted to do or you used to like doing that you put on the back burner because you were busy focusing on your
Mhm.
children? When you do that, you're now on the same journey as your children. So when they come back with all the things that they're learning, you can then share all the things you're learning. You can commiserate together. Your kids will be so proud of you. And you're still teaching them by example that you're never too old to learn something new. You're never too old to embark on a journey of self discovery. You become more interesting to your children. And that resistance to embracing this new changed a young adult in front of you, that goes away because you're also learning and growing and changing yourself. So I say, go on the same journey. Go set out and brave new experiences and meet new people and try new things.
Do you think, that college means to Gen Z what it meant to millennials or boomers?
Yeah, I do. I think Gen Z might be a little. I think we're as parents to Gen Zs because I have a Gen Z and a millennial. I think I become a little more open that there could be an alternate path than the traditional college path. My son went to
Mhm,
college and after 2 years decided it just wasn't for him and it was the right move for him. Um,
mhm.
so, I think it's a very personalized thing, but I do think the Gen Z generation, from my experience, um, they are the generation that would choose a different path. And I think we as parents are starting to understand to let go of the fear that, oh my God, they didn't get that piece of paper with the 4 year degree. And there is value in that, but it's not for everybody. I mean, there are more and more ways to get educated with certifications and in specific roles. And I think that we need to be open, that it's important to be open to that because not every child is built for college. I mean, I can share with you my college. I struggled in school. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I
Mm.
mean, I got out in 4 years and I ended up wildly successful in my career in sales, but not because of the 4 years I spent in college. Sorry, mom and dad. Sorry. By dumb luck.
Yeah, I think there's a trend there, and there may be a more gradual emptying of a nest or some boomerang
Oh, big.
parenting where the kids come back and live in your home again, and, we do have to stay open to change because this may not be final.
No, it's
And,
not.
I felt kind of a second wave of empty nest feelings when my kids got married, even though they had not been living at home, but there's that same wow, this is, you know, I'm gonna have to back off even more. They're really, going into the future in a way that I'm not part of, and, it can be sad. I wouldn't say I got depressed, but, um, you know, moms and dads cry at their kids' weddings and transitions like that, not just out of pure joy, but they're feeling a loss
Oh
there.
gosh, yeah,
Um,
you touched on so much there between the boomerang because more and more kids are coming home, and
mhm,
that requires there's a whole overarching thing of expectations when it comes to raising young adult children. And when they do come home, it's really the key is to sit down and set expectations together. Your
mhm,
22-year-old, the this is my house, my rules. You can certainly do that and say that. And then my you can say that, and then I go on to ask you, what kind of relationship do you want? If that's the kind of relationship you want with your adult child, then certainly you can always put your foot down and be that way. Otherwise, you can take a step back and say, okay, you're home again. We're not the same house you left. You're not the same kid that left. Let's sit down and talk about what's important to both of us and meet in the middle. And that's work because my son did live home for about a year and a half. And all what about all the kids that came home and they were the Gen Zers with the pandemic? We had to do that.
yes.
And then yes, there are multiple stages of empty nest, I say. The first is when they go off to college or out in the world, whichever they do. I was hit hardest when we moved my daughter out of her dorm after graduation and we went back to Philadelphia and she went off to DC. That's what hit
Mm,
me. Like she's never living home again. She's literally going
mhm.
off on her life. And then what you said, I'm just about entering what you just said. My daughter just got engaged. So I'm entering that new phase where a whole new family is coming into play. I love it. And yes, there is emotion. It's highly charged emotionally with joy and happiness and a little bittersweet sadness. Yes.
It can also all coincide too with a woman entering menopause or having, other realizations that she's aging, she's not who she was as she was raising these kids, and, I just had right when my kids were leaving the nest and I thought I'd get to really throw myself hard into my legal career, I had these physical problems that came up that, you know, really slowed me down, and it was not what I expected, and, but it can be, some physical things, it wasn't for me, but some physical things that affect a woman's mood
Yeah.
anyway, or a woman's relationship with her spouse, and so, and all of that kind of thing is completely off the kids' radar,
Yeah.
you know? They see mom probably as a fairly static figure, that,
There's a lot.
she's gonna always do what she always did and
Yeah, there's
everything.
a lot to navigate as women in midlife. There's a lot. Just as being a
Mhm,
woman and you triggered a memory. I read a book that was so good about boundaries, setting boundaries. The author is Anne Weiser Cornell. Wonderful. And you have all these emotions and you bring up a good menopause triggers a lot more than just being sad about your kids. And we can react in ways that we're like, what was that? And who was that? And what came out of my mouth? She has a really good, and it's 21 days of creating better boundaries. And day one is all about creating the awareness around why you feel the way you feel, why you say what you say. And she has a really good strategy for it. And it's when you're feeling sad or when you're feeling frustrated or angry or you don't know whatever that emotion is, taking a little step back, putting space between you and the emotion by saying, something in me feels sad. And I'm going to say hi to that. And it just kind of
mhm,
pushes a little space. You're not ignoring it. You're getting curious about it. I love it. I use it all the time. Um,
mhm.
and that's a way that if we are feeling really off kilter, that if we put a little space, we might come to the conclusion, there's something else here besides missing my children. And maybe it's time for me to call my physician, or maybe it's time for me to call my therapist and talk about I've been feeling really angry, short tempered, whatever it is. But, and it might come to light that, this is a hormonal thing, not necessarily an empty nest thing.
Yeah, that's so good. How can we be good moms to those ones who go off, aside from just getting our mindset that, they're more independent? Um, one of your podcasts I thought was really helpful talked about how to handle a child coming home for Christmas break the first time or something like
Yeah.
that. So just let them sleep the first day, not ask a bunch of
It was
questions.
what not to
Don't plan anything.
do.
They're gonna sleep, and they're gonna be tired, and, let them. They're used to sleeping till 1 unless they have an 8 o'clock class, and then they,
Oh, yeah.
adjust. But, I really liked the idea of just not making a lot of demands on them, but also recognizing, uh, "Hey, you're still part of a family, and we're gonna go see grandma on Tuesday, and she'll be so thrilled to hear all
Yep.
about you," and just kind of, set a couple of things that reintegrate them. But, are there other tips that you have for when they are back home?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about respect,
Hmm,
expectations, and expectations lead to boundaries. And
mhm,
I love. Thank you for commenting about that episode. It was one of my favorites. I think it was titled "What Not to Do When Your Kids Come Home from College." It's respecting that they are not the same child that left your house 4 months ago, 5 months ago. That they are a young adult, and that they have been making their day to day decisions without you saying, "Oh, don't forget to eat. Don't forget it's cold out." I mean, don't forget, that you need to get 8 hours of sleep. Don't forget to wake up and set your alarm. They didn't have that. They don't want that again. So it's understanding and respecting that and knowing who they are. Think about when you were 19, 20,
mhm,
21. You slept till 1 in the morning. You stayed up till 2 in the morning. So you know
mhm.
what? Instead of sitting around the house waiting, go fill your time in the morning. Go do your class, do what you want, but respect who they are now and set those expectations. Say, I know that you want to see your kid, what is it that you're looking to do over this winter break? And you can say, what I would like to do is have a family get together with your grandparents. And we would like to have, we're going to have our Christmas dinner or we're going to have our Hanukkah dinner, whatever holiday you do. And we want to have that. And that's important to us that we all have that together. Everybody in the family misses and wants to see you. And, so respecting who they are now
And
and
asking them to
asking
respect
them,
the people they come
yeah, and
back
set
to.
up the expectation. Say, hey, listen, if you really don't want to do the laundry, you don't have to. You don't have to do the laundry. You can say, what I would do is I would yell up, I'd say, hey, I'm doing laundry today. Throw it down now and I'll include it or do it yourself. My daughter would always throw it down immediately. Always. She didn't miss an opportunity. My son would be like, I'll do my laundry tomorrow. I'm like, okay, just don't touch mine. But and and I expect that whatever mess is kept to your room. And my expectation is that before you leave, you bring down all your dirty towels, like expectations, and talk to them about it. What do you need from me? And here's a
Mhm,
big one. And there's all different opinions on this one, Leah. Curfew. Most of the
mhm.
kids are coming home and they're not coming home to a college town.
Well, you have really emphasized taking a positive approach to this stage of life and taking these dares for yourself, getting out of your comfort zone that you've been in raising kids. And I it reminds me of a mantra that I have that never can get younger, but I can get newer.
Oh, I love that.
And what are some ways that you help women get newer?
Oh, through the act of daring, but taking them through a process of, and I think I touched on it before. The first step to anything is awareness. So, I say have a little fun with it. Everything starts with a list. If you listen to any of my podcasts and my guests that talk about finding a purpose, Each one of them says it a different way, but it all starts with a list. So sit down and really think about, what are things I used to like doing before you even were somebody's wife or partner, whoever, like before you even got married or engaged. Like, what did you like to do? I used to like riding my bike. I'm going to ride my bike more. I want to. My husband doesn't like riding bikes. That's fine. What is it? Did you used to like to play tennis? Did you give it up? I have numerous friends who I didn't even know had artistic ability, and one is drawing and one is doing pottery. And so make a list without judgment. Just let it flow out of you. Light a candle, put on some music, sit down with pen and paper, and just write things. Another question besides what did I like to do before is, what are other people doing that I've noticed that when I look at that, looks like, oh, that could be cool. Like that looks cool. Like I could do that. Write that on your list and don't judge yourself for it. You're going to go back once you do this, like a whole brain dump. And you're going to go back and you're going to read each one and you're going to pay attention to how it makes you feel when you read it. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go skydiving. It sounded good, but yeah, I'm not really going to do that. And pick like your top 3 or 5. And then take the top 1. And what is one action step you can take today to move closer to taking action on trying that? And here's the thing, check the fear of failure and judgment at the door. We're in our midlife, ladies. We get to try things. And if you figure out while taking a class or embarking on a new hobby that you don't like it, that's okay. You just cross it off your list, move on to the next. So I dare you to really start with a list without judging what you're writing on the list. As way out, as crazy as something might sound to write down, write it down anyway, because it's a lot of fun to do it. And if I may add, Leah, you can do that with your husband or partner. If you're feeling like you're disconnected because the kids took up so much of your time, sit together and write down things that you used to enjoy together when you dated, and start doing those things again together.
Well, it sounds like there are a lot of things to look forward to once we have an empty nest, and I really appreciate you helping women find those things. And speaking of finding, where can people find you, Jodi?
Well, the Moms Who Dare Facebook group is a really great community. It's a private Facebook group. Anybody's welcome who feels as if motherhood is theirs. Even aunts and who have been great aunts to their nieces and nephews. And if you want to find everything, the podcast, the Facebook group, everything more about me over at jodisilverman.com. It's Jodi with an I.
Right. Well, I hope you all do that. And thank you very much for your time and your candor with us. And we just both join in wishing all these empty nesters the very best as they find a new chapter in their lives. I think I just mixed my metaphors. But anyway, we appreciate your coming. And is there any last word that you want to share for moms?
The only thing I'll share is I know I invited you all to the Facebook group. Find a community. Find a community, because empty nest is the only time in a mom's life where her kids are not the conduits to making new mom friends. And community is important. And Leah touched on it. Yes, mind, body, spirit. We need touch, but we need community. We crave connection. So if it's not the Moms Who Dare Facebook group, I hope it is. But if it's not, find a community that works for you. And a community can be 2 people or 100 people. So, yeah.
I love that. Will do. All right. Bye-bye. Subscribe and review Conversation Balloons on your favorite podcast platform. Find me at leahfarish.com and on Instagram at LeahFarish.